The Chris Tucker that we got now is Epstein Island Chris Tucker, not Smokey.
Oh, Lord.
When the Epstein files resurfaced in the headlines, social media instantly went into a frenzy. Lists were hunted down. Big names were pulled into the spotlight. Secret connections. Flights no one wanted to bring up. But Katt Williams did not read documents. He watched people. Years ago, long before Epstein became the focus again, Katt warned about something far more frightening than any charge. Not who made mistakes, but who was protected, who was allowed to walk away without paying a price. A hidden system operating in silence, a closed circle where power is exchanged for loyalty. So when the Epstein files were reopened, Katt did not accuse anyone. But at that very moment, disturbing secrets about a blacklist began to surface. This is not the Epstein list. These are the names people started whispering after Katt Williams said what so many already knew, but no one dared to say out loud. And here are the names Katt Williams was pointing toward. Chris Tucker, the name that appeared in the Epstein files. In 1998, Chris Tucker was at the peak of his career. He had just starred in Friday, was about to step into Rush Hour, becoming one of the highest-paid black comedians in Hollywood at the time. Los Angeles, Beverly Hills, private parties, connections the press, never put into print. During that same period, on another level of the power world, Jeffrey Epstein was quietly running his network. Not with business cards, not with contracts, but with flights, real documents. According to public flight logs later confirmed by American media, Chris Tucker appeared on at least one flight aboard Epstein's private jet. The timing was the early 2000s, with the most frequently mentioned route being Europe to the United States. The passenger list included powerful figures from political and elite circles, such as Jeffrey Epstein, Bill Clinton, Kevin Spacey, and Chris Tucker. Of course, there were no criminal accusations, no conclusions of wrongdoing, only records of travel. But in the world of power, who you travel with matters just as much as what you say. After the peak, Chris Tucker disappeared. In 2001, Rush Hour 2 was released. Chris Tucker earned $20 million, a record-breaking paycheck for a black comedian at the time. Hollywood assumed he would keep making films, build an empire, and become the next generation Eddie Murphy. But the opposite happened. From 2002 to 2011, Chris Tucker nearly vanished. No steady film roles, no scandals, no major media return. A star who did not collapse, but also did not keep climbing. And that is the kind of disappearance people in the industry notice the most. What Katt said about Chris Tucker. In an interview on Club Shay Shay, Katt Williams mentioned Chris Tucker not as a funny memory, but as a clear example of how Hollywood changes people. Katt opened with a shocking line. The Chris Tucker of today is no longer Smokey, but Epstein Island Chris Tucker. He did not explain at length, nor did he laugh it off. He simply placed that name in the middle of the conversation as a point of comparison, letting listeners understand on their own that this was a completely different Chris Tucker from the image the public once knew. Katt continued by explaining very clearly that Chris Tucker once occupied a position no one could replace. Smokey was the soul of Friday. Without Smokey, there would be no Friday, no next Friday, and no Friday after next. According to Katt, Hollywood did not turn its back on Chris Tucker. On the contrary, Chris Tucker was allowed to choose to step away, and that was his own decision. At the exact moment, everything was unfolding. This detail matters because Katt does not describe Chris as someone who was pushed out, but as someone who deliberately changed direction. After that, Katt went deeper into the reason behind that change. He directly compared himself Willie Nelson and Snoop Dogg figures openly associated with marijuana use to Chris Tucker. Chris did not want to become the face of that lifestyle, did not want to be the poster child for marijuana use, because that was not how he lived. According to Katt, Chris Tucker was a church-going man, closely tied to his faith with a spiritual life completely different from the Smokey image audiences were familiar with. Throughout the entire segment, Katt made no accusations, did not reference files, and did not mention legal details. He did only one thing, pointing out that Chris Tucker changed who he was, the environment he lived in, and his position within the system. That is why when Chris Tucker's name appeared years later, in travel records connected to Epstein, Katt's words on Club Shay, Shay stopped being about comedy or career. and became a missing piece that forced people to ask questions. Not what Chris Tucker did, but where he was, what he saw, and why from that point on, he chose to step away from the Hollywood spotlight. What do you think? When Katt Williams talks about the system, he does not need to present evidence, because people like Chris Tucker are the evidence. The kingpin exposed Sean Diddy Combs, the shadow behind the white parties. If Hollywood is a kingdom built on stacked cards, then Sean Diddy Combs is the one holding the deck. For more than 2 decades, the name Diddy has stood for luxury power and untouchable connections. But to Katt Williams, Diddy is not a music icon. He is the monster guarding the second gate, a chilling prophecy before the storm. The most terrifying part of this story is the timing. Before the FBI raided Diddy's mansions before the files were publicly exposed in 2024, Katt Williams sat in front of Shannon Sharpe's camera with a calm that felt almost ice cold. He did not say, maybe. He said, will. Everything will be exposed in 2024. Justice is coming, and it will spare no one. That statement was not a random prediction. It was the opening shot from someone who had watched the monster from inside its lair for years and knew its breath had already begun to rot. Rituals of submission and golden cages. In multiple interviews, Katt Williams peeled back the truth behind the lavish parties Hollywood was desperate to be invited to. He called them rituals of submission. Katt stated that he turned down massive sums of money, reportedly up to $50 million, along with Diddy's protection. Why would a man drowning in debt and crushed by the system refuse such a lifeline? Katt revealed that Diddy's parties were not just about champagne and music. They were places where dark secrets were created and stored as weapons. Once you step inside, you are no longer yourself. You become a puppet, controlled by compromising evidence. I had to protect my soul, Katt said. He would rather be arrested by police on the street than be imprisoned by secrets inside Diddy's mansion. That is the integrity of an outsider. Katt Williams did not stop at Diddy. He implied that Diddy was only the coordinator. In Katt's view, Diddy was a critical link connecting the entertainment industry, political power, and networks as dark as Jeffrey Epstein's. When Katt spoke about top black stars running, he was talking about the collapse of a system built on mutual protection. When Diddy falls, the first domino will pull down the entire power structure of Black Hollywood, a structure built on compromise and silence. The drama lies in the fact that Katt Williams positioned himself as the judge. He sat there sipping his drink, naming the kingpin the world was afraid of, and laughing at the collapse rushing toward him. To Katt, Diddy represented everything he had resisted since he was 13 years old: control, deception, and cruelty hidden behind glamour. When Diddy is placed in handcuffs, it will not just be a victory for the law. It will be a blunt confirmation of one thing: Katt Williams was right. Katt Williams was not crazy. If Diddy is the surface of the chaos, then Jay-Z is the architect of an order that Katt Williams has always refused to join. The Godfather in the shadows. Jay-Z, the keeper of the system's keys. Katt Williams does not attack Jay-Z with crude accusations. He attacks by pointing out absolute control. Katt suggests that nothing happens in black entertainment without Jay-Z knowing about it. When the Epstein files began to leak, Jay-Z's silence was not innocence, but the calm of someone holding the final cards. Katt questions how Jay-Z has managed to maintain a perfectly clean image inside a rotting Hollywood. He implies that Jay-Z's power comes from knowing too many of other people's secrets, a form of quiet leverage that allows him to stand outside every purge. Katt Williams repeatedly returns to the same argument. To reach the level of wealth and power Jay-Z holds, a person must accept deals the average person could never comprehend. In the context of the Epstein files, Katt suggests that the forces behind figures like Epstein do not choose ordinary people. They choose ambassadors capable of shaping culture. As names connected to Epstein begin to surface, Jay-Z's image as a self-made, untouchably clean billionaire faces the risk of being stripped away, revealing unexpected links to some of the darkest power structures in the world. Katt Williams uses carefully chosen language when describing how Jay-Z selects the people around him. Katt believes Jay-Z sits at the top of a hierarchy where loyalty is measured by how many secrets you are willing to keep for the family. When Katt speaks about black stars running after the new Epstein files were revealed, he is pointing to fractures inside the empire Jay-Z spent decades building. Those once protected by Jay-Z are now becoming potential triggers, capable of setting off an explosion that could destroy his entire legacy. The drama reaches its peak when Katt Williams openly challenges Jay-Z's power by declaring, "I'm not afraid of those giants." Katt casts himself as the only one not under Jay-Z's heel. He argues that while Jay-Z represents success at any cost, including compromise with dark systems of control, he represents freedom at any cost. Is Jay-Z really running? In Katt Williams' narrative, Jay-Z is not running with his feet. He is running with his mind racing to erase every trace. Katt's decision to connect Jay-Z to the idea of the Epstein list is not a direct accusation backed by evidence, but an attack on the myth of Jay-Z's perfection. Katt wants the public to understand this behind Hollywood's doors no one is completely clean, and even the king is holding his breath as the final pages of the files are about to be turned. In Katt Williams' world, if Diddy is the fallen figure, and Jay-Z is the manipulating godfather, then this powerful character emerges as the most terrifying of all the hypocritical moral gatekeeper. Steve Harvey, the America's Uncle Mask and total submission to the system. If anyone is panicking the most as the darkness of files like Epstein's begins to surface, then according to Katt, it is those who spent years carefully building an image of morality, religion, and family values. Like Steve Harvey, Hollywood's gatekeeper Katt Williams does not hesitate to label Steve Harvey as someone the system selected to shape the thinking of the black community. Katt questions why a man he considers to have no real talent was able to dominate nearly every major television platform. Katt's answer is brutal, because Steve is willing to say exactly what the system wants him to say. In Katt's eyes, Steve Harvey is the man who helps Hollywood sanitize dark messages. When secrets tied to Epstein begin to leak, gatekeepers like Steve are placed in a dangerous position. How much did they know? And how much did they help hide to protect their seats of power? The trade-off behind the tailored suit. Katt Williams drills into Steve Harvey's change in appearance and style as a metaphor for selling one's soul. Back in the Kings of Comedy era, remember Steve Harvey with a full head of hair? The signature mustache and oversized suits that reflected black culture of the 1990s. That was a Steve full of energy, edge, and street-level truth. Then suddenly, Steve shaved his head, sculpted a beard so perfect it felt artificial, and stepped into custom-tailored suits costing tens of thousands of dollars. Katt suggests this was not a style upgrade, but a uniform of submission. Steve needed to look like a polished gentleman. Wealthy white audiences could trust someone safe enough to invite into their living rooms through television. Katt goes further, pointing out how Steve stripped the edge from his comedy in exchange for hosting Family Feud. From a comedian who once stood on stage speaking about pain, injustice, and uncomfortable truths within the community, Steve became a reaction machine. On Family Feud, his job is to widen his eyes, drop his jaw, and react to silly answers for cheap, harmless laughs. And most importantly, Katt is furious about Steve writing books telling women how to love or lecturing about family morality. To Katt, a man who has witnessed corruption behind the scenes and stayed silent to protect his position has no right to teach anyone about ethics. The ritual of silence and the fear of Epstein's files. This is the most dramatic point in Katt's argument. He suggests that Steve Harvey's America's Uncle role was never accidental. As new files tied to Jeffrey Epstein are exposed, those who built spotless public images like Steve Harvey are the most afraid. Why, Katt implies, Steve knows exactly who the predators are within the entertainment industry. But instead of warning the community, Steve chose to smile, continue playing the role of the kind man on television, and protect his fortune. In Katt Williams' eyes, Steve Harvey represents slave success. He can have all the money in the world. He can host every television show there is. But when he looks in the mirror, he does not see a free black man. He sees a corporate product. Katt views Steve's transformation as a warning lesson. When you agree to wear the system's suit, you also agree to let the system sew your mouth shut. And when the dark files begin to speak, those who stayed silent like Steve will have no way left to explain their complicity. Tyler Perry, the soul seller. Inside the isolated compound. If Steve Harvey is television's gatekeeper, then Tyler Perry is the new master of Black Hollywood cinema. Katt Williams does not simply criticize Tyler Perry. He despises Perry for turning black pain and stereotypes into cheap commodities packaged for the comfort of the white elite. The dress ritual. Katt Williams launched a direct strike at Tyler Perry's most iconic creation, Medea. Katt argues that Perry's repeated choice to wear dresses and portray an aggressive, exaggerated black woman is not comedy, but a required ritual for Hollywood to accept a powerful black man. Katt asks a pointed question. Why is it that for a black man to succeed in Hollywood, he always has to put on a dress? According to Katt, this is how the system strips black men of their power, turning them into harmless caricatures. Tyler Perry accepted the role of the clown in exchange for owning the largest film studio in America. Katt Williams drills into the strange structure of Tyler Perry Studios in Atlanta, a closed fortress, where Perry writes, directs, and controls everything himself. Katt mocks Perry's pride in having no writer's room. To Katt, this is not genius, it is information control. Perry does not want independent voices entering his empire. Katt suggests that Perry's studio is not just a place for filmmaking, but a safe zone for elite secrets. When referencing dark files like Epstein's, Katt implies that isolated mansions and sealed-off studios owned by figures like Perry are exactly where unnamed rituals can take place far from public view. The traitor, hidden behind the Epstein files. The tension peaks when Katt mentions the panic among Atlanta power brokers after the Epstein and Diddy files began to leak. Katt implies that Tyler Perry represents a class of power that constantly preaches hope and perseverance, while in reality serving as a node in the global elite's control network. Katt believes Perry never truly owned his empire. He was merely a manager licensed by the system to oversee the black community. When the files begin to speak, the mask of the self-made billionaire will fall, revealing the strings pulled by the same dark forces operating behind Epstein. Katt Williams looked directly into the camera and challenged Tyler Perry's status with one cutting question. Have you ever really been free, Tyler? While Tyler Perry scrambles to erase traces or reinforce his fortress. Ahead of the 2024 revelations, Katt Williams stands outside laughing at a billionaire's fear. Because Katt understands one thing, no matter how massive the studio is, it is never big enough to hide the truth once the soul-selling contract is broken. Cedric, the entertainer, the wall of silence, inside the alliance. In Katt Williams' eyes, Cedric the entertainer is not just a bad colleague, but a core member of the alliance of deception. Katt sees Cedric as the embodiment of a lack of integrity, someone willing to steal creative material to climb to the top, and once there become a loyal gatekeeper for the system. Katt Williams accused Cedric of stealing his most iconic joke, an act considered the ultimate sin in the world of stand-up comedy. Katt recalled Cedric coming to watch his performance laughing loudly and later delivering that exact joke on the Kings of Comedy as if it were his own. What enraged Katt was that despite how obvious the act was, Cedric was never punished. Instead, he was pushed even harder by the system. To Katt, this is how the alliance operates. They protect their own, regardless of the truth. Katt places Cedric in the same group as Steve Harvey, and Kevin Hart figures he refers to as the alliance group that controls who gets to rise and who disappears. According to Katt, Cedric crossed the second gate long ago. He accepted the role of a harmless entertainer, always smiling on television to polish the image of the power brokers standing behind him. When Katt speaks about black stars panicking and running after the latest scandals, he is pointing to people inside the alliance like Cedric. Why? Because if one link collapses, the entire network of those who protected each other, attended private parties, and benefited together from the system will be exposed. Katt Williams mocks Cedric's name, the entertainer, as bitter irony. Katt argues that Cedric has no true identity of his own. His career was built on borrowing other people's ideas and relying on studio protection. While Katt is labeled dangerous for having independent views, Cedric is seen as safe. The system prefers people like Cedric because they never question the dark rituals or the injustice happening right in front of them. The 2024 reckoning when the alliance falls apart. The most dramatic moment comes when Katt Williams looks directly at this alliance and declares, "Your time is over." Katt suggests that once files like Epstein's or Diddy's are brought into the open, the system's protection for people like Cedric will vanish. Those who once dismissed Katt, calling him crazy to hide their own fear, are now facing their greatest terror. The truth spoken by someone who has nothing left to lose. Tiffany Haddish, the unnaturally fast-tracked star. Katt Williams does not hate Tiffany on a personal level. He despises the way she was programmed for fame. To Katt, Tiffany's career is living proof that the second gate is always wide open for those willing to follow the system's script. Katt asks a sharp question. How does someone who never proved elite stand-up ability on major stages suddenly get everything after just one movie? Katt believes Tiffany did not rise through skill the way comedy legends did. She was lifted by the system, handed a breakout role in Girls Trip, and turned into the face of black women overnight. Katt implies that to receive that level of favor, Tiffany had to accept an unspoken deal. To become a model of being loud, crude, and shallow, exactly how Hollywood's elite want the public to see black people. Submission to the system's rituals. Katt zeroes in on Tiffany's behavior at elite parties and major events. She consistently appears overly cheerful, sometimes exaggerated to the point of excess. Katt argues this is how she proves she is safe to the system. She does not challenge anything. She does not take firm positions. She simply plays the role of a puppet, enjoying the spotlight. When the Diddy files and other dark networks began to surface, Tiffany became caught in a growing cloud of suspicion. Katt suggests that careers that rise in such a miraculous way often owe powerful figures favors that cannot be repaid with money, but only through participation in closed networks. A shocking scandal. The tension peaks when Tiffany Haddish became involved in serious legal accusations involving minors. The case was later dismissed, but the damage to her public image was severe. Katt sees this as a sign of expiration. The system can discard you instantly once you become inconvenient or once a replacement has been found. In discussions about who is panicking in 2024, Katt implies Tiffany is among those most afraid. Her career was built entirely on the favor of gatekeepers. When those gatekeepers fall, their products like Tiffany have nothing left to hold on to. Katt Williams sees in Tiffany the panic of someone who knows her castle was built on sand. As the Epstein files continue to be opened, those who rose through connections, more than talent, will be the first to be swept away by the storm of truth. Finally, Katt Williams turns his focus toward the very top of the power pyramid. If figures like Diddy or Tyler Perry operate at ground level, then the next figure is the one sitting on the throne holding the wand that can turn someone into a saint or a villain in a single interview. The power gatekeeper, Oprah Winfrey. In discussions about those allegedly scrambling in the shadow of Epstein, Oprah does not appear as a victim, but as the cleaner. Katt Williams does not see Oprah as an inspirational icon. He sees her as a political filter, someone who decides which truths are allowed to live and which must be buried. The systematic purge of black men. Katt Williams made a shocking claim. Oprah Winfrey is, in his view, one of the elite's most effective tools for dismantling powerful black male figures. Katt points out that Oprah is often present for interviews that effectively end the reputations of figures like Michael Jackson or Russell Simmons, while Oprah aggressively exposes the alleged wrongdoing of black men. Katt questions why she remained silent or maintained close friendships for decades with what he calls the real monsters figures, like Harvey Weinstein or Jeffrey Epstein. To Katt, this is not coincidence. It is the role of a high-level gatekeeper. Katt Williams goes deeper into Oprah's connections with some of the darkest figures linked to the Epstein files. He implies that Oprah knew exactly what was happening on Epstein's island and inside private gatherings of billionaires. Instead of using her media power to protect victims, she used it to steer public perception. As new files began to leak images of Oprah alongside Harvey Weinstein, along with reports of private trips were dug up again, Katt describes Oprah's reaction not as the fear of someone powerless, but as the fear of a deity watching the foundation of her moral empire begin to crack. The ritual of elite submission. Katt suggests that Oprah operates at the most sophisticated level of control. To sit across from Oprah, you must agree to tell a story that has already been edited. You must accept becoming part of the agenda she represents. Katt despises the way Oprah built the image of a black woman who rose from poverty only to use that power in service of the control structures of the white elite. He calls it the greatest betrayal. The tension peaks when Katt Williams declares that the era in which Oprah's words functioned as scripture is over. Katt believes the internet and public awakening have weakened Oprah's power to destroy reputations. In his narrative, Oprah's sudden withdrawal from certain roles or shifts in public image, such as her highly publicized weight loss, are desperate attempts to distract attention from the dark files slowly coming into view. When Oprah's velvet curtain falls. To Katt Williams, Oprah Winfrey represents manipulation at its highest form. On the list of those running, Oprah holds a unique position. She is not running from the law. She is running from the judgment of history. Katt wants the world to see that behind the warm smile and wise advice lies a ruthless system of control, one in which people like him are crushed, so icons like Oprah can survive. You can interview the whole world, but you will never dare to interview your own conscience. That is Katt's final strike at the most powerful woman on the planet. In the end, this story is not about convicting anyone. It is about asking a question many people avoid. Who is allowed to speak? Who is protected? And who is forced into silence? Katt Williams does not present a list. He simply lifts the rug and lets people see the system underneath. Some names appear in documents. Some names exist only in whispers. And some names never need to appear at all because they have always stood on the right side of power. Now it is your turn. Is there a name you feel is always protected in a way that does not make sense? Leave a comment. If this video made you think, hit like to support the channel. And subscribe because we will continue digging into stories about celebrities' power and the things that never make the headlines.
All data, analysis, and commentary in this video are presented based on information available at the time of production. The content is subject to change over time and should not be considered a definitive forecast.
There is still so much more to explore. Stories of resilience, legacy, and truth. Feel free to dive into some of our top recommended videos now appearing on your screen.